Nightly news ended, Jim Robinson's home phone started ringing off the hook. His sister in Michigan, his friends across the country, all calling because they saw Robinson's gas station wash away on national news, and they wanted to help.
It was quite an experience. And when you think back and you look back at those pictures and things, I've never seen things happen like that before, and I hope I never do again.
At first, he thought he'd make repairs in short order. It took about a week for Robinson to realize the scope of this disaster.
It makes you kind of sick. And you can see what your life's ambition just wash out by. It really affects you.
And now, a full year later, Robinson's mobile station is still in upheaval. The retaining wall has just been replaced. The station won't reopen for customers until at least this fall. And in the meantime, Jim Robinson estimates he's already lost $300,000.
I guess that experience is a good teacher, and we'll keep a watchful eye on the river.
1 year ago tonight, Clint Foss was keeping a watchful eye on the river that was suddenly flowing through his front yard. What are you going to do now?
Well, we'll go to the town office and talk with the town manager and see if there is any money available, even on a small interest loan, to, partially cover the damages that we have here. And, well, if there's nothing available, well, we'll just have to kind of work it along ourselves and do the best we can with what we got to work with.
The Foss's riverfront home suffered the most damage of any Dover home, more than $18,000 worth. With money from friends, FEMA, and the Red Cross, the Fosses have spent the entire year making repairs.
Are you glad you live on the river?
It's a hard decision to make. We've lived here for 30 years, and it's pretty hard to just pick up roots and move somewhere else.
No one else wants to pull up their roots either. Dover is their home. And while Mother Nature played a cruel joke on this town last April Fool's Day, this year the atmosphere is different. People are confident they'll know what to do in a crisis. It's just the springtime rain showers that put them on edge.
I never was so nervous about rain this time of year as I am now.
Just hope and pray that it doesn't happen again.
Now, the town of Dover-Foxcroft suffered almost $2 million worth of damage. And aside from Jim Robinson's gas station and the bridge in the center of town, almost all of the repairs have been made. Now let's go back to Eloise Daniels and find out how the town of Guilford made out in the flood.
Thanks, PA. A few miles upriver from here is the town of Guilford. A year ago, we couldn't even get there because water blocked the way. Guilford suffered millions of dollars worth of damage, and today there are still people trying to recover.
It was something that no one alive now had ever witnessed. On this side of the river and right down Water Street where there never had been any water before, and it was 6-8 feet deep down there in a terrific current.
Today, Guilford only shows the bathtub rings of oil scum about 8 feet up on its buildings. Guilford Industries, which was nearly torn in two last year, rebuilt this span in the first weeks, and the town got help.
FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, did very well by the town, the municipality, for municipal damage to roads and so forth. They did very well.
Thanks to a federal loan, Guilford Development Corporation is replacing elderly housing. It'll open in August.
Which will have 24 units in it to replace the 16 that we lost.
But the president of Guilford Development estimates damage to the original housing at some $500,000. The government is offering to buy it out for $20 grand.
It was like a slap in the face to the directors. We felt that they led us to believe something that didn't happen, which I think has happened a lot during this flood deal with some of our government bureaucracy.
Others in town just would have given anything for a federal loan.
I wasn't looking for any free money. I just wanted a lower interest loan, and they refused me on it.
The government did send him $700 for damage to the plumbing in his house attached to the business. He says that's the only part of the house that wasn't damaged. Last year, he disgustedly scrawled through this check, the only result of mountains of forms he had filled out.
Matter of fact, I was the one that was telling everybody else that, oh well, make out the paperwork and stick with it, and they'll come through. And I made a liar out of myself. Friends, relatives, and the banks have been kind enough to loan me some money, and you know, that's all that is what's done it.
Only the Elderly Housing Project and a grand total of 4 of the homes in Guilford actually had any sort of flood insurance. And ironically, they're the only ones that qualify for the federal buyout program. Homes like these by the river qualify for nothing. And for Joan Grant, who once lived here, she's lost everything she owns.
I didn't qualify. I fell between the cracks.
Her house is unlivable, empty, just like the others next to the river.
I had been through the entire federal government, all their agencies, and got absolutely nothing. It was the state of Maine that finally eventually helped me. They formed a thing from Maine State Housing where you could get a grant or a loan depending on your income.
But a little federal help for individuals like Grant is what the town manager would have liked to see from all those government visits.
And no one has gotten a nickel as yet.
You have to remember the town manager said originally he had no quarrel with the federal help the town had received, but individuals have had to look elsewhere. It's also worth the mention that people like Joan Grant got good, solid help from state and local agencies. Don?
Now, Louise, there was a tremendous amount of damage here in Piscataquis County, about $14 million worth. We're just amazed at how much water came down. Now, meteorologist Ken Barlow is joining us live from Bangor to tell us how the flood happened. Ken?
Thank you, Don. Well, as you said, a lot of people didn't get the heavy rain. Down east sections, in fact, down towards Calais, only got about 1/4 inch of water. But where the rains fell, that's where it counted. Let's take a look at what I've drawn up here. What did happen during the flood of '87? This is exactly what happened. Of course, heavy rain, and as in all cases of flooding, the heavy rain, of course, is the key factor that we have to be concerned with. And between 2 and 7 inches of water came down around the headwaters of all the major rivers. That was the beginning of the problems. And then we get into what is called the snowpack. And the snowpack is very important because depending on how much snow is on the ground, that tells us how much more water is available to cause flooding. In other words, the 12 to 36 inches there is in snowfall amounts melted down to water. That's between 5 and 7 inches of water because it's a very dense snowpack. Also, we have to be concerned with ice jams, and those are caused when ice breaks up and begins to break up during warm temperatures, and it has a damming effect. And of course, the actual flood stage itself is very important. Many of the flood stages, for instance, in Dover-Foxcroft, were doubled. The normal flood stage in Dover-Foxcroft is 11 feet, and at the height of the river, it got up to about 22.5 feet. Joining me now from Dover-Foxcroft, one of my weather watchers that you hear me talk about quite frequently. Here he is, right here, Paul Naut, a weather observer not only for me, but also for the National Weather Service. He is an official weather observer. And Paul, what I want to ask you is a couple of things. First of all, what is the difference between this year? Of course, many people concerned. It is that time of year. What's the difference between this year and last year?
There's quite a difference, Ken. Last year, on the last day of March, in Blanchard, we had 24 to 28 inches of snow. Yesterday, we had 20, that's 8. And in the area between Barrows Gorge and Guilford, last year we had 18 to 20. Yesterday we had about 14. In Blackstream and Dover, we had yesterday 12. Today we're down to 10. There's only a difference of 2 inches, Ken, here from last year. But there is much more ice. The ice is still in the Piscataquis. I figured it'd go out around the 8th or 9th this year. And it's still a foot thick up in the Blanchard area along Wilson Stream. I was there the day before yesterday, and there the ice is 10 to 14 inches thick and had only gone out in a few spots.
Okay, thank you very much, Paul Naut, my weather observer from Dover-Foxcroft. We'll keep our fingers crossed that we don't have any kind of heavy rains, of course, the key ingredient, and it doesn't look like we're going to have any out of the forecast later on. Eloise?